So this is the section of the Global Industry Summit when we are going to be covering all great things Spain. I wish we had more time to talk about their food and their culture, which would be a whole nother session that's equally as fantastic. But today we're talking about the screen industries in Spain. From Money Heist to the others, Spain is sparkling creativity and collaboration. Where iconic narratives collide with innovative ideas, the Spanish audiovisual industry is leading Europe as an innovative hub, linking initiatives, ideas, and pioneering concepts to spark creativity and productivity. Spain is a rapidly changing industry landscape with groundbreaking incentives, strategic collaboration, and really an ideal partner for international projects, particularly for us right here in Miami-Dade County. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers for this session. Patricia Motilla, who is a senior partner at Anderson Spain. Welcome, Patricia. You can applaud now. And Gustavo Ferrada, who is the head of scripted at MediaCrest.
Hi, everyone.
And I would like to now invite our distinguished colleague, Patricia, to the podium so that she can run through a very exciting PowerPoint presentation on the latest incentives and international co-production structures from Spain. Patricia?
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Kamakol, for giving Anderson the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much to MMFM y muchísimas gracias, Patricia, otra vez por invitarme. Well, let me just introduce my law firm, Anderson. I know everybody knows Arthur Anderson. That's the name of the past, and the name of the future is Anderson. We are a law firm, an international law firm. We have offices all around the world. And we have an industry group that is the media group that I'm leading in Spain, Europe, and LATAM. We have a big team all around the different offices, and we are very focused in tax incentives. I will talk today about why Spain is in this moment one of the best countries to shoot. In this sense, please take into account that if you decide to come to Spain to shoot, you may come as a foreign producer or as under an international co-production. If you are coming as a foreign producer, that means that the IP is a foreign IP, it's not a Spanish IP, and the show will be financed totally by you, by a non-resident producer. If you are coming as an international co-production, that means that the show will have two nationalities, the Spanish one and the foreign one, the American one. And that is very important because the law to be applied is totally different. When you talk about a percentage that is Spanish, one law will be applied totally different of the other one, even if the total show is shot in Spain. Another thing you may take in consideration is when you arrive, when you land in Europe, you are under the European laws and the directive. And there are a lot of regulatory requirements to comply. The first thing, even if you are American, if you want to shoot under an international co-production, your co-production must be approved by the Ministry of Culture of Spain, the ICA. Okay, that's a very important requirement to take into account. If no, you won't have any tax deduction. So, Spain is a very good country to shoot, but very complicated. You need lawyers. So, from the tax point of view, Spain is divided in different territories. The first one is the mainland territory. You have the Canary Island in just close to Africa, and you have the north of Spain, that is the Basque territory plus Navarra. and I put that at the East Valencia. Valencia is a new territory. Nobody knows about this incentive. It's not a tax incentive, but a direct aid. Why? I don't know if you know about big studios that call Ciudad de la Luz. They were closed 10 years ago because Europe put a penalty to them, and now they reopen. And because of the government of the Valencian territory want to push forward these studios, if you come to show there, your show is more than 4 million euros, and you invest at least 2 million euros in this territory, you may obtain a direct subsidy of 1.5 million euros, plus the tax incentive that I'm going to explain now. So, okay, in summary, territories, the mainland territory, the Canary Island, and the Basque and Navarra territory in the north, plus the Valencian one that is a subsidiary. Sorry. Okay. Main difference when we are shooting or when we invest in the mainland territory or in the Canary Island or in the Basque territory. Depending where you shoot, you will obtain a cashback tax rebate or tax credit. It's totally different. When we talk about tax credit that is in the Basque territory, that means that we need private investors. When we are under a tax credit procedure, the government will refund the money. So let's talk first of all about the cashback or tax rebates. That means that we are shooting or in the mainland territory or in the Canary Island. Limits. You need a worldwide production of 2 million euros, the total cost. You need to invest at least 1 million euros. And the producer, that is very important, must be tax resident in the Canary Island or in the mainland territory. That is very important because normally, when you come to Spain, you cannot come directly. You need a line service. So if the line service set up a new company for your show, it's very important, if we are talking about the Canary Island, that we have a real company there with a CEO there and with the accounting and the taxes there. It's not just to set up and to have an address in the Canary Island. We need to have the activity there. Okay, please, if you want to interrupt me and to ask things, please do it because it's quite difficult and it's very important to understand the main ideas, okay? So, another limit is the taxable base will not exceed the 80% of the worldwide cost. I mean, the total cost, not like in France or like in Italy that we have the 80% of the cost incurred in France. The total cost of the show, the 80%, is one of the limits. And the eligible expenses will be any provider and cast when they are tax resident in the European Union, non-American cast. I mean, if the above the line is American or is Mexican, it's not going to be considered as eligible. So you have to take into account that when you prepare your figures in order to see if it matches or not. Related to the tax credit is when we are in the Basque territory that is divided in 3 territories, Gipuzkoa, Álava, and Vizcaya. I will explain deeper later, okay? So, another thing very important, the cultural certificate. You need, when you are a foreign producer and you shoot in under the tax rebate, to obtain your cultural certificate. And in these cases, you may obtain your cash back refunded by the tax authority. A percentage to be applied, 54 million euros in the first million euros, 54% on the first million euros when we are talking about the Canary Island, and the 45% in the exceeding amount. If we are talking about series, and that is very new and is very interesting, this percentage are applied episode by episode. So the limits are 36 million euros for the total show, or 18 million euros by episode if we are talking about series. In the mainland territory, the same, but the percentage are different, is 30% in the first million euros and 25% in the exceeding amount. And if we are talking about series, we will have a cap of 20 million euros or 10 million euros by episode. Let's see some example. Let's see, it's a big amount of money, this show, 30 million euros, but the figures are the same for 30 million euros, for 6 million euros, okay? The foreign producer, the American producer will sign a PSA with a local service, and you will find your show to the line service. As I told before, the taxable base is the 80% of the total cost. In the example, is the 80% of the 30 million euros, that is 24 million euros. So once we are here, we needed to check what costs are eligible and which one are not. And you apply 54% in the first million euros in the Canary Island, 30% in the first million euros in the mainland territory, then 25 or 45 in the exceeding amount. The total tax rebate in this example that you may obtain is 6 million euros in the mainland territory and 10.8 million euros for the Canary Island. It's not bad. Okay? The same example, but talking about series, and assuming that we are talking about 10 episodes, we do exactly the same procedure, but episode by episode, and the amount to be refunded is 6.5 million euros in the mainland territory, and in the Canary Island you will obtain 11.7 million euros back. Any question here? You mean the cost of the... I think this question is much more for Gustavo than for me. But yes, the crew are more expensive because most of the mayor from LA are shooting there, and it's plenty of people than the territory. But I think that Gustavo may explain you much better than me.
Yeah. What's happened is that this scheme is so good. Foreign companies coming to Spain that most of all the studios and platforms, they've come to the Canary Islands, and the way they produce it's different from the way we produce in Spain. Costs are different, and yes, that it's a little more expensive. If you come with Spanish producer, basically if you're doing through the tax incentive scheme, not about the tax rebate scheme, it's us doing the negotiation, which is always a little easier. Easier, not easier, but you get better. You can get better rates. But yes, it's a little more expensive, but in the end, that extra cost brings in some really good financing. So in the end, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, so timing, and that is very important. Assuming that we are finishing our investment in Spain in the 2024, okay, the fiscal year finishes the 31st of December. That means that your local producer will present the company income tax the 25th of July, and the tax inspection has 6 months to give the money back. So if we are finishing in the 2024, you will receive your money back in January, February 2026. And that is very important because sometimes you think you're going to finish in the 2024 and you finish in the 25. Depending on how much you are expending in the 2025, we have to think if it's better to give up about this cost and to do not consider it as eligible, or to push forward the cash back for 1 year. Because if you're finishing, even if it's in January of the 25, you will obtain your money back in the 2027. So 1 year later, so you needed to prepare very well your shooting in Spain. And we needed to take that in consideration. And another thing very important when you decide to go there, in green light or pre-green light, you have to check that you follow all the requirements to obtain the cultural test. Because if you don't, you may not obtain this tax incentive. So before starting, we need to check and to prepare the film in order to obtain and to follow all the requirements. Another thing very important is we have the capacity to finance the tax rebate at front. And that is something that you should negotiate with your local service and to establish it in the PSA. I mean, when you are coming to Spain and you know that you need the money in the cash flow of your show to shoot it, you may negotiate with the local service, and that is very important to do it in the first negotiation you start with them, because they have the Spanish producer, have a limit of 10 million euros to finance themselves. So you needed to check that the local service you are talking with is capable to finance the cash back if you need the money up front. Okay, understood that? So let's go to the famous vast territory. That's very new, okay? The vast territory, from a politician point of view, is divided in 3 territories. Vizcaya, that's Bilbao, Álava, and Guipúzcoa. Vizcaya, the law entered in force last year, and Guipúzcoa and Álava entered in force 2 months ago. They similar but different. Okay. If we are talking about Vizcaya, I'm going to tell you what the law says, and after Gustavo will explain to you the reality of what is happening in this moment.
You know, the law says whatever the law says. Truth is something different from law.
So, the law says, if you want to go, to benefit the Vizcayan tax incentive, Vizcaya, the blue one, the only thing you need is to set up a company there, that can be the company of the local producer, and to cash flow and to fund your show through Vizcaya. That means even if you do not invest money in the Vizcayan territory, you may obtain a 35% of the total cost funded cash flow through the Basque territory with no cap. So just because you are cash flowing your show there, if you invest between the 20 and 35%, you may obtain the 40% in the total cost. If you are investing between the 35 and 50%, you may obtain the 50% on the total cost, okay? On the total cost of the show. What are we doing and what are preparing? What is happening is, when you are shooting under one of the country, European country, the directive establishes that a show may not obtain more than the 50% of the total cost, except if there is a director that is a woman, except if you are under an international co-production with a country, with a European country, or with what they call a development country, for example, Mexico, Uruguay. In these cases, the percentage to be applied may arise up to the 60%. So if you shoot through the Vizcayan territory, you invest the 51% of your cost there, you will have the 60%. And the rest of the cost, you shoot it in Colombia, for example, you will overlap both tax incentives. The 60% of the total cost plus the Colombian or the UK tax incentive in the cost you incur in the other territory. Why? Because you are shooting out of Europe. In Europe, you cannot go up the 60% or the 50%, but you may overlap when you shoot the rest of your cost in other territories. That means we are doing that in this moment between Basque Territory and Colombia, and now we are starting a new show with Uruguay, and we are and another one with Chipre, and we are overlapping the different tax incentives. So that is what the law establishes, and that is true. And last year we did it. We did it in 3 shows. We didn't invest money there, and we applied the 35% in the total cost of the show, and we went to shoot to another territory, and we applied the tax incentive for the other territory. What is happening? Because it's very good, okay, because these tax incentives are very good, I think all the Spanish producers, all the European producers, and half of the American producers are shooting there. So, as we need the private investor are becoming very selective. The first year that the law was enforced, nobody knew about that, so it was easy to obtain this tax credit, this private investor. But now the private investor says, okay, I invest in your show if you invest in my territory. I'm not going to give you my money because I have some other opportunity to invest that I prefer to invest in a show that is investing in the vast territory. So it's starting to become a bit complicated if we are talking about big shows to obtain this tax incentive. If we are talking, for example, of a show of 5 million euros, 6 million euros, that means that we need 3 million euros is okay. But in this moment, we have shows of 30 and 40 million euros that needs 20 million euros of tax incentive. Boof. It's not a big territory, okay? So that is, you have to think about it, and you need to try to make a reservation of money if you decide to come to shoot there. If it's not a big show, we are talking about 2-3 million euros. It's not as complicated as that. Do you agree?
Well, actually, yes. Let me translate this. Okay. The whole thing is basically, if you go into mainland territory, you have 2 options. You're an American producer, you go there, you hire this company to provide production services, and then it's pretty straightforward. You get your incentive. It's really easy. You get IP, but that's all the financing you're gonna get from Spain. If you go to the mainland territory or the Canary Islands, mainland territory and Canary Islands are very similar. Canary Islands is an extra 20%. So that's how sexy that gets. It's really the same, but with an extra 20%. Just think about it that way. So that's a very straightforward way of doing it. The other one, if you co-produce with Spanish producer, then you get basically the same, but you can get some extra financing from pre-sales and from other ways of financing in Spain. So that makes a lot of sense. But you have to share the IP. You have to become real co-producers. So that's the basics on the Spanish scheme. And then with the Basque scheme, it gets really complicated, and you really need to go hand by hand together with some law firms and with some experienced local producers. Because when she talks about investors, it's not equity investing. It's not that they invest coming up with money in equity and so on. It's about how you finance the tax incentives. So you need people who can bring in that kind of money, and the amount of money there is available for this kind of investment is it's what it is. And you cannot. It's so many. It's 20 million, 30 million per year. That's all. Since this is so appealing, and the scheme is really, I mean, you get a lot out of what you do in there. So many companies came. I mean, all the studios, all the platforms, everyone is going there. So you're gonna start fighting against big people with a big budgets, and you're probably not gonna be accessing the investors because they are gonna be in bigger shows or in shows that directly relate to Basque County content. So, yes, this is very sexy, but normally for someone else. If you're small independent producer, there is money for that, but there is it is so much people trying to get that money out of there that probably you're gonna have a hard time getting the right investors in order to do that, and that's gonna be more and more and more expensive. Also, since everyone is going to I'm not trying to say that the Basque County is not a place to go. It's really it's so good that it's turned out to be so competitive that everyone's going there. So you're going to be fighting against big guys and against the local producers. So you wanna go with some very good lawyers and with some really strong local producer. Otherwise, your chances to get a hold of the tax investors,
Okay.
it's reduced.
Yeah, actually, when we said you need private investor, means that you have your tax credit and you sell your tax credit to a private investor with a discount of the 20% by law. So that means in your total tax credit, you reduce it in the 20%. But at the same time, you needed to find this private investor, and you needed to negotiate with the broker. You need the lawyer, you need the broker, you need the investor. Anyway, the figures are so good that always the number goes and matches. What is happening this moment, and from our legal point of view, is if you are coming with a 6 million euros, show it works. It works well. And we can shoot there, and we can shoot in UK, for example, and we will overlap, and we match everything, and it's a good opportunity. If you are coming...
Excuse me, Patricia, overlap means same spend that it's that you can get tax incentives from in Spain can also apply more tax incentive in the UK, so you get twice the money.
In the same euros, you apply 2 different tax incentives.
So you get extra tax incentive from 2 different territories for some specific eligible cost, which is really good. But again, this gets more and more and more complicated.
That's been, for example, we have a 6 million euros show. We invest 3 million euros in the Basque territory. We apply the 50% on the 6 million euros. And the other, if we are shooting the 51%, the 49% we are shooting it in any other country with tax incentive, non-European country, UK, or any LATAM countries. We will, in this 49% that we have already applied, the 50% Basque, we will apply the UK incentive. So we will have 2 incentives. That means that if we overlap them, you may obtain the 60% back of your show, more or less. Taking into account that you have to give discounts, to pay commissions, and all that.
Excuse me. And that applies also to Colombia, Puerto Rico, so this gets
and
better.
Uruguay, Ecuador. We are doing already that. Any question about that? Okay. Yeah, no, one thing is to shoot in UK or to shoot in Spain as an American producer. Another thing totally different is if you have an agreement of international co-production. That is totally different because if you are coming and you're shooting there and you are obtaining in this territory, you are obtaining there, but the nationality of the show is American. And at least from the Spanish point of view, you will apply the law established for the foreign productions. But if you are in an international co-production with America, with a state, even if there is not an agreement between state and Spain, as you are under the directive, because you are shooting or you are co-producing with Spain, at least one of the part must have the 20% of the EIP, and your show will have double nationality. Compulsory. I mean, it's not way to negotiate in another way. So that means that for the 20%, Spanish 20%, or French or any other country, you will apply the law for Spanish shows. And in the other percentage, the American percentage, you will consider as a foreign producer. So you will all the time combine both law to be applied. I don't know if I'm responding to your question. Yeah. It doesn't matter because we are talking about US and you do not have an agreement. But if you are talking, for example, about France or any other country of the LATAM one that have agreement, we need to check the agreement. Actually, last year, we had a very complicated international co-production that we have Spain, Poland, France, and Italy. And it was really complicated because the agreement signed by the different country had different years. So the requirements didn't match, and we needed to negotiate with each of the Ministry of Culture in order to obtain the international co-production. If not, you won't have the tax incentive in any other country. So that is a very important requirement to take into account, because when you come from state, you are not used to the European rules and regulatory issues, and there are quite a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, for a co-production, you come with an American project that you want to co-produce in Spain, but that's what we do. So we'll figure out a way to make it happen. I mean, it's not for international co-production. You use Spain. There are ways to look for the best potential, to get the most out of the scheme in a way that makes sense for everyone, as long as you're willing to co-produce, really co-produce.
No. But in this moment, there are a lot of producers doing that. The thing is not the producer, but the private investor.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not big territories, so there are not so many. I mean, let's say that we have around 50, 60 million euros to be invested in shows.
But the problem is in the Basque territory. In the rest of Spain and the Canary Islands, you don't have the problems. You didn't have a problem with investors. Actually, this used to be the case like 15 years ago. Now there is every year there is more money than we can use for tax incentives. So, except for the Basque territory, where the number of investors is it's what it is. For the rest of the territory, there's no problem. Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So just for finishing, Guipúzcoa and Álava, the requirements are very similar, but you need to invest between the 35%. You need to invest the 35% in order to obtain the 50%, and you have a cap of 10 and 10 million euros. And just a quick example, and I finish. If we are talking about 30 million euros, and we are talking about we invest the 35% in the territory. In Vizcaya territory, there is not cap, so the tax deduction to be applied is 15 million euros. You deduct the 20% you need to give to the investor plus the commission of the broker fee, you may obtain net for you 11 million euros. In Guipúzcoa and Álava, because you apply the limit of 10 million euros, you will obtain 7.3. Okay? So that is the three ideas. Spain is very good location to shoot. It's complicated. You need to follow some regulatory issue as well. And if you decide to come, we will be waiting for you.
You need a good lawyer, you need a good producer.
This is a great collaboration. I love it. Just the back and forth, PowerPoint questions, answers. You guys, you let me take a little break for a while. I appreciate that. But you did a fantastic job. Spain are amazing partners, and we're always looking for more ways to work with Miami-Dade County and our producers locally here. But I think that this is going to be an interesting partnership moving forward. So I want to thank you guys both for this amazing presentation.
Thank you. That was an easy one for me.